Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are back with some more incredible Smart Series Nanmu models. This is maybe the most anticipated overall from this series. As you can see, we've got the V-Rex, and it does actually state V-Rex now on the packaging, and you can see V-Rex Dark Moon Queen and V-Rex Shadow Monarch. And of course it does state 2.0 as well, because technically this is although there are 3 releases now of V-Rex, because one was the Soul of the Dragon release, but these are the second as far as like the more kind of mainline-ish type Nanmu releases. And I think they look absolutely incredible. What I can see through the packaging, it's a little hard to really see in there, but that looks so darn nice. And of course you have some beautiful packaging with some very nice artwork down here for the V-Rex. Pretty much the same style of packaging that they've had for the Smart Series since the Carnotaurus. They did switch it up a little bit from the Velociraptors, the first release, and they had kind of like a more cartoonish sort of artwork to it, and they've gone ahead and gone back to more of a realistic look for the artwork. But I like either, you know, they both look great to me. But here on the side you can kind of see like a sneak peek of the figure, some images there for it, and then basically the Smart Series logo on the opposing side. And then here on the back, you can obviously see a really nice shot again of the figure and the logos and everything. And if we bring the other one in, pretty much is going to be the same thing going on. You can see again that really beautiful artwork there for the V-Rex. And then of course, once we turn it around, you can see the same thing here for the back when it comes to the very nice image of the figure contained within. So let's go ahead, pop this box open, well, both of these boxes, and we'll check them out. So I'm not going to lie to you guys, I am almost breathless at how incredible these V-Rex are. Like, look at that. That is unreal. To think that, like, Nanmu is fairly new to the articulated figure game. You know, this is only their 3rd official release, even though there were 2 different versions of the Velociraptor the first time around. I count those as one release. Again, same deal with the Carnotaurus, 2 different versions, so that would be the 2nd release, and now this V-Rex would be the 3rd release, and they've already mastered the game with these figures. It's crazy how unbelievably impressive this V-Rex is. I would say that this is even better than their older V-Rex, like absolutely unreal. And you actually get a very cool stand with the figure, which would help with balance and different poses and stuff like that that you can choose to create with your V-Rex. And again, you can swivel different areas of it and different parts to make sure that you get it positioned exactly as you would want it to be positioned. You can basically swivel every area of it to turn this in any way that you would like, and then position it. I'm just going to put it in the neck right now, but obviously you can position it anywhere you want. Use it any spot that you want if you would like to use that to, again, prop up your V-Rex. But then you've also got, actually, let's just move this guy out of here for a second, but you also have the other color variant of it here. And as you can see, oh man, these things are unbelievable. These are far and away the nicest V-Rex that I have ever seen. And I remember there was such a massive interest in the Arctic Figures version, but like this just puts the Arctic Figures V-Rex, in my opinion, to shame. Absolutely unreal quality figure from Nanmu. So let's go ahead, jump to a closer look, and we'll check them both out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt, just honestly take a second to really take that in. Absolutely unreal when it comes to not only the sculpt but the paint apps of this. It looks so picture perfect to the way I remember it from the film. Even the way that the brown kind of follows along the jawline and just gives the dinosaur like that sort of, in my opinion, almost gritty kind of feel. And you can see you've got all of the different scars and stuff here on the face, which is also something that you do see on the V-Rex in King Kong. They absolutely knocked the head sculpt and honestly every aspect of this V-Rex out of the park in a major way. You can see when you get nice and close that the skin texture looks absolutely phenomenal as well. You have all sorts of variation to the skin texture, and then again the scales and everything when they pop up. You've got some really nice looking scale detail down here on the lower jaw, which again perfectly captures the V-Rex in my opinion. You can also see we've got a really nicely painted eye. We've also got a nice gloss coat there over the eye, giving it a nice realistic shine. You can see the nostrils right there. We of course have an articulated jaw, and once you open that jaw you can see how incredible that looks as well. Like, just look at that visual of the V-Rex coming toward us. The tongue's a little bit goofy right now because I was just messing with it to see if there was an articulated tongue before I stated that there was, and there of course is in fact an articulated tongue, and you can see how I've moved it up, but you can of course push it down if you would like to. So that also helps when it comes to posing your V-Rex. You now have the ability to articulate the tongue in different ways. But as you move through the course of the mouth, you can see all of those menacing teeth from our V-Rex. They all have a nice genuine sharp look to them, as well as a nice kind of glossy look, that wet look, and that looks awesome as well. When you come over here, you can see the skin now stretching on the inside of the mouth. You can see they've painted that with some light tones, also applied some washes. Again, just perfect paint work for this. Same deal with the tongue. You can see it's painted the same way as the skin is there on the inside of the mouth. And once you take a look at the inside of the mouth on the upper side, again, the detailing is fantastic. The paint work is fantastic. Everything on this head sculpt of the V-Rex is fantastic. And of course the jaw works perfectly. As you move back here into the neck, you can see again that we've got all of those different like dark grayish tones. You've also got a nice brown wash that has been applied, and you'll see that through the entire figure when it comes to like the grayish areas. You'll have that brown wash popping up in between all of the different scales, which I think helps to amp up the realism of the paint apps of this perfectly. As you move down, you can obviously see we've got quite a few different articulated joints. You've got one right here, you've got another one right here, and then another one down here at the bottom of the neck. And that does create some really nice posability in the neck. Of course, you can go left and right really nicely. If we look from up above, you can see you can go left and right with the head and neck. And then, of course, the midsection also helps to, again, articulate the figure left and right. And then you can also go up and down, not as far. Basically, when you try to go down, it's almost like a straight shot forward for the V-Rex, but it does help, again, when you have so much articulation that you can then crouch the V-Rex so that it can basically go down to, like, drink and feed and stuff. Continuing to move back into the body, you can see some of those larger sort of osteoderm-like scales down here in the shoulder area. And then, of course, up here on the back of the head and neck, you have that almost armored sort of a look for the V-Rex moving down. As you lead down into the arms, you can see the arms as well are sculpted really nicely. You've got a little bit of muscle definition right there. You've also, of course, got more articulation. So, again, some of the joints might be a little stiff because I did just take it out of the packaging. But you can see you can basically go forward and back. You can also come out away from the body a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. It's hard to really do it because, again, it is a little stiff, but I could definitely see you can do that. You've also got the elbow articulation forward and back, and maybe swivel. It's hard to really tell because the upper part of the arm keeps moving with it, but it looks like maybe it can, but I'm not entirely sure. But then you move down into the fingers of our V-Rex, if I can reposition it here. And you can see we do have the 3 fingers right there. You've also got the nails painted with a nice dark tone that my camera can't focus on for some reason. Basically a dark gray there for the nails, a little bit of a darker gray than we see for the rest of the body. You've got like sort of armored sort of scoots moving down along the side of the arm that are painted with a brown. And then you have a different tone of brown for the undersides of the arms as well. One area I really like are the skin wrinkles right here in the lower part of the stomach. I think they just look very realistic and, again, very natural, and also quite reminiscent to the way the V-Rex, again, looks in Peter Jackson's King Kong. As you move up, you can see a really smooth transition from the lighter tones down here in the lower part of the dinosaur to the darker tones of the upper side. And you can also kind of see, both of those colors basically like blending and showing up slightly here in the stomach region of the V-Rex as you lead up. And again, you continue to see those light brown tones, that kind of light brown wash popping up in between each and every one of the incredible scales on the figure. You also have the ability to, again, articulate the midsection left and right and up and down. So some really nice posability in that area as well, which you can see. And again, up and down. As you move back here into the hip region, you continue to see again the very armored sort of a look for the back of our V-Rex. And then as you move down here into the side of the thigh, again, the skin texture looks absolutely gorgeous. You've also got super smooth transitions when it comes to the coloration, very naturalistic tones of color. They've also very nicely dry brushed these lighter tones over the lower part and back of the legs of the dinosaur, which helps to highlight the detail even more. As you move down, you can also take notice to the very nice muscle definition, and very nice when it comes to the calf area. The calf is very much so bulging and very strong looking, but you've got the knee there in the front of the leg, and then as you lead down, you've got some more of those scoots moving down along the front of the foot down the toes, and obviously they are again painted out with that kind of lighter brownish tone that we saw up there in the back of the arm. But you can see the toes are even incredible looking when it comes to both the sculpt and paint. Again, I love that we transition to the different variations of browns as you lead down into the bottoms of the toes. And again, you've got the nails sculpted very realistically, very nicely painted with the darker tones of gray as well. And yes, you do even have dew claws down here, which you can see over there, which again are extremely realistic looking. So, man, this is absolutely some of the nicest paintwork I've ever seen on a Nanmu release. And then, of course, you've got leg articulation forward and back, and you could really get some nice poses on this beauty when it comes to that leg articulation. It also moves out away from the body, which you can see. You've got the knee, which is absolutely a little bit stiff right out of the packaging, so it's not too easy for me to move, but you can see I'm starting to get it to go now that I'm using it a little bit. As you move down, you've got another spot here, which is definitely a bit smoother, a little more worn in, and you can swivel that area. And then as you move down, you've got yet another spot. Let me go ahead and reposition here to try to grab it to show you. You've got another spot here in the foot, which can also swivel again, and then again go forward and back. And you've got articulated toes, which is even cooler. Again, Nanmu really went all out when it comes to this V-Rex, and as you can see, you've got those joints for all three of these primary toes. And then we lead back up, you've got again some more skin wrinkles and folds and stuff down here in the lower part of the body. As you lead up higher into the tail, you can see again the very armored look becoming even more armored, I would think you could say, as you move out here into the tail. And then as we continue to lead out, again, the paintwork still has that same type, with the darker variations of grays and then the very nice brown wash, and then you've got the lighter tones down here on the underside, but you can also see that we have like a striping effect leading off from the upper part of the tail as you lead out. And we do even have that very interesting look here where the tail almost kind of flattens out at the end of the V-Rex, which is also really cool. And you can see again how nice that paint app is right there. It looks absolutely spectacular everywhere. And also, of course, as you lead out, you've got one spot of articulation right here, which is actually really quite articulated. Like, there's a whole lot you can do with that area, which you can see. It's very nicely done. And then you've got another spot right here, which basically can do the same thing, up, down, left, and right. Another spot right here, left, down, up, right. And then, of course, I said that super wrong. I meant up, down, left, and right. And then again, you've got another spot out here. And then this last little bit almost feels like it's probably a wire tail. It's hard to really tell, but it does seem like it has a little more flex to it than a lot of the other areas. And then you can see moving along the underside, again, all of the skin texture and really impressive paintwork. And then, of course, once you take a look at it from the opposing side, it's going to look the same as we had seen on the first side, considering it is just a fully articulated, fully posable figure. You are going to have the same visual from both sides when it comes to the figure. And then, of course, we've got the other variant. Now, sculpt-wise, I do believe these are completely the same. The paint is where we obviously have a massive difference, and you can see, rather than those classic V-Rex tones of color, this one has a very cool, still very natural paint application. And you can see, basically, you've got like a dark brown as you move up here into the top of the head. And similar to the other V-Rex, we basically have like that like tan wash in between all of the cracks and crevices. It's a little hard to see it right there, but as you move back here into the neck, I think it becomes a little bit more obvious as you lead down. You've also got these really nice like reddish brown tones, and you see more of those down here, but you can see a darker brown tone kind of following along the jawline. Then you've got an even lighter tone down here, kind of like a light brown as you lead down, and yes, an even lighter tone as you move down into the underside of the lower jaw and down into the throat. So again, showing you that there's a mountain of coloration that has been applied to this figure. I also really quite like the fact that we have these light tones for the eyes. Like, these white eyes look really cool in the overall visual with the darker tones behind it. The eyes really pop, and of course they have that gloss coat. You can see the sculpt is definitely the same as the other V-Rex, but of course very different paint apps. Now you can see the inside of the mouth has a little bit of a different tone of color there for the skin when it's stretching. Same deal for the tongue. The tongue is actually a different tone of color compared to over there, so they have added a little bit of extra as far as the coloration and everything goes for the tongue on the inside of the mouth of this V-Rex. And you can see, honestly, I feel like you can get a better look and a better idea with these colors on the inside of the mouth of the V-Rex as far as how impressive the detail is on this one. Even the teeth are a little bit of a different tone of color, as we have like a sort of almost like an orangish brown, giving them that very dirty kind of a look, but again, that very realistic look, showing that our V-Rex clearly isn't brushing, as I wouldn't expect it to, but it looks super, super realistic. And again, that jaw works very nicely. Of course, we also have the articulated tongue and everything. As you move down, you have all the same articulation on this figure as you had on the other one. And as we continue to lead down through the course of the neck, you basically continue to have that same style of color as you lead down. But as you lead down, you can see the darker tones kind of lead into the body, basically overtaking the arm. And we do see a darker variation of a red showing up right here. And then you lead down, and those darker tones overtake a large portion of the arms, most of the arms, except for you can see the undersides of the arms do still have the lighter tone of the underbelly down there. And again, you have the nails painted out, this time with what appears to be either a very dark gray or a black. They're just so small it's kind of hard to tell. As you lead back up into the stomach, you see more of those very nice variations of reddish browns and kind of yellowish browns and stuff that transition very smoothly up to the really dark reds, and then again up to the dark browns on the top of the V-Rex. And it's kind of looking actually like, rather than the tans, maybe we have the dark red as the wash. I'm really seeing more of the dark red up here on the back of the V-Rex. As you move down, you see more of the darker tones basically kind of running down into the thigh, sort of striping down, and also following along the front of the thigh, with more of the reddish tones following basically right beside it, and then of course the lighter tones moving down along the back of the leg. The scoots and everything aren't quite as highlighted on these feet as they were on the other one, because again, you had that kind of like light yellowish brown highlighting the scoots on the other one. This one, the scoots kind of more so blend in with the rest of the foot, but we still have that lighter brown basically moving along the undersides of the toes, and you can definitely see that it's a very dark gray for the paintwork of the nails on this one. But man, oh man, the paintwork on these are so unreasonably beautifully done. Like, it's crazy how nice the paint is on both of these V-Rex figures. And then as you lead out, you again have the really nice combinations of browns with the orangish and yellowish and reddish browns the entire way through. You've got those dark tones basically replicating the same style of paintwork as the other one, with very different tones, where we have that sort of striping effect moving out through the course of the tail with all sorts of those variations of browns. And you can see even up here from the top, you've got a little bit of a mixture of the lighter and darker tones of browns right there. So that looks absolutely awesome. And then of course you can see both sides again honestly look just as gorgeous as the other side does, again being a fully posable figure, though it's going to look pretty much the same on both sides. But I have never in my life seen better V-Rex figures than these two right here.
And one thing I was really wondering about these V-Rex was if they would stand, because obviously they're going to be a good bit larger than the previous few figures we've had in the Smart Series. And, I was wondering if maybe the weight of these new figures would be just too much for the joints and maybe it would crumble. Not the case. As you can see, Both of the V-Rex are in different positions. I put the reddish one in kind of like a crouching position, like maybe it's about to start taking down some sort of a meal and, you know, enjoying itself at dinner. And then I've got the other one in kind of like more of a walking pose. And as you can see, both of them stand perfectly in both positions. So showing you that, again, these figures are amazing. But as far as the size goes, I'm going to have to remove one of these guys and get them out of here. And we'll just move this guy up a little bit further so we can get an idea of the measurement. You are looking at right around 17 inches or about 43, a little over 43 centimeters. And then when it comes to a height, of course, it's right now kind of in more of a slouched position while it's walking. We'll get a measurement here, but there's not really much of a point, honestly, in measuring the height of something like this unless I stand it up as completely tall as it could get. So in the position it's currently in, to the back of the neck, about 4.5 inches or just shy of 11.5 centimeters. To the back of the hips, you are looking at more so in the 5.25 inch range, or about 13.5 centimeters. But if we position it standing up tall, and we've now given it one of the most vintage T-Rex sort of poses that you could possibly think of, you are looking at just a hair under 10 inches or about 25 centimeters. So obviously that increases the height drastically. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human being next to our V-Rex. And as you can see, it does have a pretty good size to it. Definitely a good bit larger than any of the previous Smart Series releases, no doubt about that. So there is the Jurassic Park 3 female Velociraptor from Nanmu next to the V-Rex, and as you can see, the V-Rex drastically outsizes that raptor. We've also got the Nanmu Smart Series Carnotaurus next to the V-Rex, which yet again you can see the V-Rex is significantly larger, showing you that the V-Rex so far is the largest of the Nanmu Smart Series overall. Then when it comes to a comparison with the older Nanmu V-Rex, this was the obviously not articulated version, that kind of standard version they released a ways back, you can see that they are pretty much the same size, honestly. Like, Nanmu definitely did a great job as far as everything goes with this release. Again, keeping it the same size as the older one, but one thing that I can really see on these two is just massive improvements on the head sculpt on the newer one compared to the older one. The older one is gorgeous, but I just feel like the newer one is so much more screen accurate compared to what we saw on the older one. But if I actually position them a little bit differently here and kind of pull them back, you can see again they're pretty much the same size when it comes to what you have come to expect for a size of a V-Rex from Nanmu. And then when it comes to V-Rex, we have one of the older Playmates versions of the V-Rex here. So if you happen to have this figure, it's not their largest version. I feel like this one, the larger version that they had released, would actually be kind of similar in size to the Nanmu V-Rex. But when it comes to the smaller versions, you can see that obviously Nanmu wins yet again. And then, even though I hate to do it, I know I will be asked in the comment section why I didn't, if in fact I did not do it. We have the Arctic Figures version of the V-Rex next to the Nanmu version, and since I know many people are definitely going to want to see that comparison, you can see here again just how much nicer, and of course even bigger, the Nanmu version is than the Arctic Figures version. The Nanmu version is just insanely beautiful overall, sporting just way better coloration, way better paint application, and of course a more accurate, more screen accurate sculpt as a whole. So definitely an incredible release from Nanmu. Now, anybody that may have been upset that they didn't get a hold of the Arctic Figures version a ways back, no reason to sweat that. You can grab this incredible version from Nanmu. So this brand new Nanmu Smart Series Super Articulated V-Rex is absolutely unbelievable and may be my favorite Nanmu release to come so far. I would say it's definitely my favorite when it comes to the Smart Series. As far as Nanmu overall, that's such a tough call. There's been so many amazing releases that they've had. I don't know if I could ever actually pick just one. But when it comes to the Smart Series, this is definitely my favorite. Crazy that I can say this one even exceeds my love for their Carnotaurus. Definitely impressive to me if you ask me, but as a whole, I feel like they just killed it with this release. Sculpt-wise, it is far and away the best V-Rex that Nanmu has released so far. They've completely perfected, in my opinion, every area of this one compared to the previous two releases. And I love the addition of like the scars and everything on the face, because that is definitely something that you do see on the V-Rex in King Kong. The paint application is absolutely gorgeous on this, on both of them, of course. But, you know, you've got very nice variation of color. Nanmu has gone all out when it comes to the actual application of the paint of both of the figures. Again, making sure that it has just as much, if not more, paint application than you see on their more mainline releases. So I love the fact that Nanmu kind of transferred over to, you know, creating articulated figures, of course, with still releasing their more standard type figures, but they kept the same quality that we know and love when it comes to the paint apps of their releases. And on top of that, they've also continued to keep the impressive quality of the sculpts. Like, these are insanely highly detailed, and the detail is extremely vibrant through the course of the entire figure. And then, of course, you've got tons of articulation, like so much of it through the entire figure. You can pretty much create any and every pose I would think that you would want for this one, which is always very fun. Definitely the biggest selling point for any super articulated figure like this is the ability to, you know, pose it and articulate it any way you want, and this V-Rex definitely has some gorgeous articulation on top of everything. So if you are interested in picking these up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that, of course, on Lana Time Shop. So make sure you head on over there, grab both of these V-Rex, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.